Greetings from Dr. Dan the Magic Man. I'd like to share with you today some things from Chapter 8 I want you to remember. But first, I'd like to introduce you to a very special pet. His name is Bosco. He is a real magic dove. The camera's that way, boy. Turn around. Yeah, there he is. He has a very special thing that he loves to do. Go ahead and hold out your hand like this. He loves to give high fives. All right, so hold out your hand. There, no, right there. Yeah, that's it. He loves to give high fives. He's accustomed to giving about 100 or so children high fives. They typically line up when I do the library shows or school shows, and he loves to to give high fives. Bosco, yeah. There are no more children. There are no more children, but he loves to do that. He just can give high fives over and over and over. At any rate, we're going to put him away for just a little bit, and let's talk about learners with emotional or behavioral disorders. There is a myth that if you have the punishment harsh enough, you can effectively deter the inappropriate behavior. And yes, to a certain degree, you can put in severe consequences and somewhat deter the inappropriate behavior. But with this disability, we must go way beyond simply punishing the children. When we punish the children, we may actually be causing the inappropriate behavior to occur even more. We need to teach the children the appropriate behaviors to replace the inappropriate behaviors. There's also a myth that if we have an environment that is permissive, where the children feel accepted, that we can eliminate this disability. And yes, we need to have an environment where the children feel accepted, but we must go beyond that. We must have a firmly structured environment. We need to have a very predictable environment so that the children know what is expected and what happens when the behavior is inappropriate and what happens when the behavior is appropriate. We need to look at consequences that are fair. We need to be able to respect the person as we're implementing the consequences. It's not about forcing or making someone behave. Let's look at the definition. We define this category by socially unacceptable behaviors. But here is the problem. We define what is acceptable based on human opinions. And you can see where there could be cultural bias and differences in beliefs that could interfere. Think of this disability from an educational perspective. A series of assessments has been given, and based on the opinions of several people, this child has an emotional or behavioral disorder. Let's dig a little deeper into the definition. It uses terms that I think of as lawyer terms: inability, inappropriate, satisfactory, normal. Think about those terms. What is normal? What is satisfactory? What is inappropriate? An inability to learn
that cannot be explained by intellectual, sensory, or health factors. What is inability? Do you see how it can be very subjective? An inability to maintain or build satisfactory relationships with peers and teachers. Think about that. What is a satisfactory relationship? Inappropriate types of behavior or feelings under normal circumstances. I can't help but chuckle a little bit because we have so many words that are very subjective in this definition. What is an inappropriate behavior? Well, I can tell you what an inappropriate behavior is. An inappropriate behavior is a discrepancy between what the teacher expects and what the child does. If I think it's wrong and you do it, then it's inappropriate. But it's based on that teacher's expectation. And you can see how subjective this definition can be when we're looking at opinions. So when you have this child in your classroom, I want you to move beyond the medical model thinking. When you look at this child, I want you to say to yourself, a series of assessments are given. And according to human opinion, this child has this disability. There are two broad dimensions, externalizing and internalizing. The externalizing will be behaviors like striking out, hitting, overt behaviors. Usually you will have no trouble identifying those behaviors. But there are those who are depressed and have anxiety disorders, and those are in the category of internalizing. And I want you to keep a sharp eye out for those children who are withdrawn and are not externalizing with their behaviors. This is true for other disabilities as well, but we really want to pay attention and make sure that we do everything within our power to help those children who are struggling emotionally, particularly those who are facing the challenges of depression. Look at these children as humans. I hear teachers describe these children as monsters. Well, I have this little monster and it just rolls off their tongue as if they were talking about a TV movie or some commercial. These are children. These are humans. Be sure to respect them and value them as humans. When you see someone misbehave, you should approach that as a learning need, the same as you would a learning need in math, English, spelling, and any other academic subject. If a child mispronounces a word, you typically wouldn't expect a teacher to start screaming and yelling. Well, when you see inappropriate behavior, you shouldn't start screaming and yelling. Look at it from a learning need perspective. This child needs to learn something. He doesn't know how to pronounce this word. Should be the same as he doesn't know how to agree to disagree. This child doesn't know how to express his or her disagreement in a positive, productive manner. What do I, as a teacher, need to teach this child? Address it in a calm, businesslike, respectful way. And try your best to teach the child what the child is lacking. Focus on the positive. My sister is a very wise person, and I borrow quotes from her often. I remember discussing with her my frustrations in the classroom. I was frustrated that I couldn't get the children to behave long enough to listen. And I was also discussing with her the statistics about how most of the children in the category that I was teaching, BD, behavior disorder, were going to wind up in jail or some type of correctional facility. So statistically speaking, they were going to leave me and at some point be in some type of correctional facility. And she said, I have had those same frustrations. And here's what I say to myself. I must keep teaching, because if this child is in jail and gets a letter from his grandmother, then he'll be able to read it and he'll be able to write his grandmother back. And there is a very positive thing that I can focus on. Now, I know that's odd advice, but I remember holding on to that. I remember thinking to myself, you know, she's right. Regardless of what happens later, regardless of the statistics, I must do everything within my power to give these children the tools they need to be successful later, even if it is reading and writing letters from jail. She was being very extreme, obviously, but she was making the point of focusing on the positive. Focus on the string of good thoughts. If you were here in the studio, I would let you examine this string. It is a string that is very strong, and I have a straw here. This straw represents negative thoughts. This string represents a string of good thoughts. And sometimes the string of good thoughts can be surrounded by negative thoughts. So I'm going to put the string in the straw. I'll try to keep it in the camera here. And you can see the string of good thoughts is inside the negative thoughts. And it's hard sometimes to focus on the good things when the good things are surrounded by some of the negative things. And we should do our very best to get rid of the negative thoughts. I'm going to try to make this as clear as possible. Going to put that right in there and cut it. And you can see here, try to get that in the camera angles there. But you want to get rid of the negative thoughts and keep your string of good thoughts. And that's what you should do, and that's what you should teach your children to do as well. So as a classroom teacher, you need to focus on the good, find those good things that the children are doing, and focus on that. And help the children focus on the good things that they're doing as well. Well, this is Bosco, and Bosco Jr., and he's going to give you a high five.